Hi, I'm David. Welcome to my channel, My Yard Sale. Thanks for stopping in. So this last week, I've had the heck of or I should just say a hell of a time with my metabolism and my health. It's been a little crazy. I was doing really good a couple weeks ago, even up to a month ago, eating for the most part just meat, like beef patties, a little bit of broccoli here and there, mostly just that, broccoli and beef. And I guess I had some chicken nugs too. I had a couple of those, a little bit here and there, but not enough to make a real difference. So I started eating this, I started using this Huel chocolate shakes as a meal substitute occasionally throughout the week or the day. I was trying to use it just once in the morning as like a breakfast because it has like a lot of nutrients and vitamins that are healthy. At least it looked healthy. It felt healthy for the most part. So I was trying to eat that once a day. Occasionally I would have it early in the morning and then I would have it later in the evening as a midnight snack, I guess, because it tastes pretty good. So I was using this Huel chocolate, which again, I stand by the fact that that chocolate tastes better than any of the other shakes that I've tasted chocolate wise. But I will say that as the week progressed, I got it on the first, and as the 2 weeks progressed, I started having the worst case of inflammation, is what I think it is. It just caused my joints to get all stiff. My bones started cracking again. Very unusual. But I thought that I was managing the shakes pretty well. I was keeping the carb count pretty low. Each one of those shakes is supposed to be 45 carbs. So I was keeping it, under a shake or two shakes a day, under 100 grams of carbs. And most of the rest of the food that I eat all day is a couple of beef patties and some broccoli, so I don't have to worry about carbs for the rest of that. But as the days progressed, the inflammation just progressed and progressed and progressed with these Huel shakes. Again, I really like them. Somehow I was just not managing it correctly. They say that you're supposed to use 2 scoops per shake. Maybe I should have used 1 scoop. I don't know. So I started getting worse and worse inflammation where my joints were getting snappy again. And I was having a hard time with just my joints not working correctly. My neuropathy got worse in my hands. And the strange thing about when I would drink a shake, I would drink a Huel shake and my eyesight somehow would get clearer. I didn't completely understand that. But as the days and the week progressed, my eyesight degraded and degraded and degraded to the point where I had to figure out, what the heck, what's going on here? Because I was doing a pretty good job of managing the carbs, and I just thought it had to be something else. So I did a little bit of research, and Huel uses sucralose as a sweetener. And there is obviously a sweetener because it tastes delicious. And I've used sweeteners in the past. I've used allulose, I've used stevia, and I have my preference of those. But I had never really used sucralose before. It's another non-nutritive sweetener, but I didn't really look into it too much. And I did notice that I bought a sugar-free barbecue sauce that also used sucralose as a sweetener instead of sugar. And I guess I was happy about that because when I read no sugar added, I feel like I'm already in the win because I know that sugar was causing me so many problems. Now I can enjoy the sweetener or the sweetness of a product without worrying about the sugar. Well, what I didn't know is sucralose actually has a lot of horrible things associated with it. And quite frankly, I think it should be outlawed. I'm just going to read a couple of things that I found on Google. I found Google and some of the content providers on YouTube are pretty accurate and truthful in some of the things that they say and post and that they just provide in their content. So this thing with sucralose. A small study found that sucralose elevated blood sugar levels by 14% and insulin levels by 20% in people with severe obesity who didn't regularly consume artificial sweeteners. Anyways, there's a bunch of different parts of this. You can look it up on Google if you'd like. But what they did say is that it elevates blood sugars and it elevates insulin, which is exactly what I was experiencing. I drink a shake, and even though it was weird because my eyesight got what it felt better initially, probably because there's some nutrients in it that my body just needed. The longer term usage of the product just degraded my system and just made me worse and worse and worse, almost back to when I was eating so many beans. Like it was I was pretty wrecked earlier this week to the point now where I'm back to probably just eating meat and broccoli for a while, trying to get this out of my system. Supposedly it takes 5 days to get sucralose completely out of your system, so at least 5 days I'll be eating beef patties and broccoli. And I don't hate that, but it's nice to have a little bit of a treat, something sweet that makes sense. But I just think anything with sucralose is probably a bad choice for anybody. It doesn't, I mean, I guess there's probably a reason to use it. If you're having a hard time managing sugars and your weight is a problem because of that, maybe sucralose would help, but anything metabolically, sucralose is a bad choice because it does elevate insulin and it elevates blood sugars, even though it's not a it's a sugar substitute, but it's not sugar, so your body doesn't address it correctly. Like with sugar, your body can just release insulin, lower the sugar back down, and you get back to normal. This sucralose somehow gets stuck in your system. I think it does. I think it's in your system until you literally pee or poop it all out, which is 5 days. In 5 days, a lot can happen. You eat the same thing for 5 days, and your system changes to whatever that product is is changing your body towards. So I thought that was interesting, and I thought some of the people on this channel might be interested to know. Sucralose, not a good choice. Now, I do like allulose. I like stevia. I'll use those as sweeteners. I've used those in the past, and I'm not a huge fan of the flavor of stevia. I actually like allulose quite a bit. And I don't really have any inflammation or problems with allulose for the most part. I can tell when my blood sugar gets spiked because I immediately have to pee, and I'll pee like 5 times until it's all out of my system. I can tell the insulin spiking in my system because it just metabolically wrecks me. It makes my hand dexterity like questionable. It makes my strength questionable. I'll lose the strength of my legs pretty quickly. Anyways, I'm just sharing this because I had to dig into what it was with this Huel product that potentially was causing me so many problems. And I do think that there's a potential problem with the amount of carbs because each serving is supposedly 45 carbs. So if you eat 3 servings in a day, you're eating way more than 100 grams of carbs, which for me, that's very bad. But if I'm drinking 1 shake a day, why would 45 grams of carbs, cause my metabolic problems to come back and just wreck me for the most part, for the day, for the 2 days, for even the week? And I looked up all this information on sucralose and found that there's so many downsides to that product that I think that was probably what was causing me some of the problems that I had. So if you're using sucralose, or if you're using anything that tastes sweet but doesn't say it has sugar, check and see if it has sucralose. And if you're having any kind of metabolic issues, take that product out of your diet. Take that product out of your refrigerator. It's probably causing you problems. So so if you have any comments on that, I'd love to hear about it. Add it below. I would like to hear what you think, and I will be curious to see if anybody says anything about it. So I think that sucralose definitely caused terrible inflammation in my system. It made my bones start snapping again, and my joints all start snapping again. My knees are snapping. My elbows were snapping. Caused that inflammation. And now I'm thinking that when I had done those posts months ago about all the snapping in my bones, I thought that it was because my muscle was growing back, my tendons were growing back, maybe muscle mass, maybe bone mass was growing back. But I am actually now just thinking that that was inflammation in my system based on whatever I had eaten. I don't know what I would have eaten in that particular day, but I think all that snapping in my system, I think that that was all just inflammation. So now I'm trying to get back to eating just meat and broccoli, and I want to try to get this inflammation completely out of my system. So we just rolled up on another 9/11, another year 9/11, and I want to talk about this just for a minute. I remember I lived in Florida when 9/11 happened, and I remember being on my way to work, listening to it on the radio of what was going on, and I just couldn't believe it. Now, I'm prior military, so my first thought was, I want to take action. I want to hurt those who are hurting us. And that was interesting because that was a one-sided story. That was just what the news was told to say and report on. That's what they reported on. And of course, it got us all angry because we knew a lot of people died. None of them were my friends at that time. I lived, like I said, in Florida, and this happened in New York, obviously. Now, so many years later, I actually know a lot of people that were in Manhattan when that happened. And I know a lot of people that were affected by that whole event. And it still makes me mad, but now the media is a little bit different. There's still the initial story of what happened, but then there's all these side channels, and some pretty credible, that are talking about other things that have happened. And I thought I was a little skeptical to begin with because I couldn't understand how 12 guys that lived in caves got as far as they did to do what they did. And then the thing that kind of threw up flags in my mind were there's these jets that are basically built to work in levels of heat that are unbelievable. There was these 9,000-pound engines that there was no pieces, no parts, no history of any engines. There was a jet that supposedly crashed into the Pentagon that there should have been either 2 or 4 engines. There should have been engine parts. There was no reports of any engine parts. It just disappeared, along with the $4 trillion that disappeared out of the Pentagon and out of the Treasury. So that there just started making me think, what the heck? So now there is definitely other media sources that are talking quite a bit more openly about the same skeptical thoughts that I had. Like this whole thing with Building 7 doesn't make sense. That'd be like a plane hitting a building in New York City and a building in Chicago falling down and then blaming it on the terrorists. It just doesn't make sense. It made sense when they were talking about Building 1 and Building 2 that supposedly both were hit by planes and the fuel, went down the elevator shafts, even though these buildings were designed for that to not happen. Like it made sense that maybe those two buildings might have fallen, but then this third building, Building 7, there was no reason for that to fall. There was no plane that hit it. It just poof, randomly fell. And you start thinking, well, if this third building could randomly fall, how can I prove that the first two buildings fell from, the initial crash? And I don't think that there's any science that supports that either of those two buildings fell because of a plane crash. I just don't think that scientifically can. I don't think it can be proven. I think the only thing that can be proven is that there was some third party that brought those buildings down. And who could that have been? There's only one thing that I think that could have been, and that would have been our own government. Would our own government kill 3,000 people to steal $4 trillion? Back then, I would say no way, not possible. Today, I say absolutely. This government would poison the entire country to scrape $4 trillion out of the treasury freely. I believe that. And if you believe that too, that's great. I'm happy that we agree. If you don't believe that, again, I keep talking about the comments. Do me a favor, leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Because I'm feeling pretty strongly that not what I'm saying is correct, but I'm feeling pretty strongly with the way that I feel. So I won't talk about 9/11 anymore. I used to love going on Facebook. I enjoyed seeing all the stuff that my friends were doing and their families. I actually enjoyed Facebook. I liked logging in the morning and just seeing what's going on. But now I don't know what's going on. Facebook, my Facebook feed is 95% ads and crap. I can't even get to my friends and family because there's so much garbage in between beginning and getting to them. I hate it. I'm going to have to find some alternative Facebook that doesn't have all the garbage and crap. And I get they need to make money. I appreciate that. And I would like to help them do it, but geez, they're ruining the whole experience of Facebook with all the garbage that they're putting in. Now I'm getting ads for stuff that it's not even relevant. Like I'm not interested. Like I'm not interested in a waist holster or tampons. I'm not interested in any of that. I'm not against any of that stuff, but I'm just not interested in it. Yet it's in my feeds, and I don't completely understand it. So I've talked about the astronauts the last couple of weeks. I'm still feeling pretty uncomfortable that we have astronauts in space with no way home. I mean, I'm thinking they probably have enough resources to be up there for a very long time. I think it'd be silly to send astronauts up without the ability to spend even years in space. So I think that they're probably okay for quite some time, but I'm just waiting for the emergency to happen because I feel like this government would love some space emergency that they could scrape a couple $1 trillion out of the treasury and have an excuse for it. I'm not going to vote no and let people die in space. But now I'm wondering if voting yes is just making things worse. Because if we voted to let them spend $2 trillion to save astronauts in space, they would be so excited to send up 4 more astronauts right behind them to get them stuck in space so they could spend $10 trillion. That's how I feel like this government is working right now. I don't get it. I'm trying to not feel like too emotional about it, but if you ever been trapped somewhere or stuck somewhere, then you know how they might be feeling. And I've been in that position. I didn't like it, and so I think about how they must be feeling, and that concerns me. So usually I talk about the weather. So I'm going to talk about the weather for a second. Where I live in New York, right now the weather is perfect. I leave the windows closed because it gets chilly at night and then it's very warm during the day, which is perfect. It keeps inside very temperate and moderate. It feels great. And so I just leave the windows closed now and it feels good. I'm enjoying the weather. I think for the next, I don't know, 10 or 15 days, It's supposed to be nice weather, so maybe even next week I'll talk about the weather again and talk about how amazing it is where I live. Because usually it sucks. Usually it's 105 degrees or it's 12 degrees, which is not pleasant in either side, no matter how you're dressed. Anyways, I hope this has been an interesting post. I know it's been pretty uneventful, but I'm actually happy about that because the less events that I have, the better the week is that I have. I'm pretty happy about that. So this week, I'm switching back to eating beef patties and broccoli for the most part. And I'm hoping that's going to help me get this sucralose out of my system and get back to normal, at least get back to feeling normal. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you had a great weekend and have a great week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.